Meeting of Aurora City Council for June 6, 2022 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner. Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Jurenski.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonik.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Announcement of the call-in line information.
Good evening. City Council welcomes feedback from the public on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. If you would like to speak and have not already spoken to an operator, please press *3. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 and press *3 when connected. You will hear a prompt confirming you are in line to speak to an operator and then be able to continue listening to the meeting. When the operator comes on the line, please be ready to give them your name and the agenda item you wish to speak on. Keep in mind, you must press *3 before the city clerk reads the title of the item you wish to speak on. Finally, as a reminder, council does not allow comments about any items on the agenda during public invited to be heard. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes, and the public invited to be heard is limited to 1 hour in total.
El Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Aurora da la bienvenida a la opinión de sus habitantes y otros vecinos en asuntos comparecientes en la agenda y durante la invitación a la audiencia pública. Por favor, llame al número de teléfono 877-820-7831 y al conectarse ingrese el código 254610 seguido de la tecla numeral. De allí, espera para hablar con la persona que al llegar su turno interpretará su comentario en inglés. La operadora tomará su nombre y el asunto a presentar ante el consejo y le pondrá en espera. Las personas han de esperar al anuncio de la invitación a la audiencia pública o hasta que les ceda tiempo para tratar un tema específico en la agenda de hoy. Y al ser llamado por el funcionario encargado, va a depender del número de llamadas para ser conectado con la operadora. Así que por favor sea paciente y permanezca en la línea. Si usted no está en la fila de llamadas al momento que se invita a escuchar al público, se le colocará en espera para última invitación para comentario público. Finalmente, recuerde que el Consejo no permite comentarios en ninguno de los asuntos en la agenda durante la invitación para escuchar al público. Gracias.
Moment of silence. Please join me in a moment of silence for the 19 children and 2 teachers murdered in Uvalde, Texas. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Executive session update. During executive session previously, we discussed an oil and gas lease offer and mediation. Approval of the minutes for May 23rd, 2022. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Sundberg.
Councilmember Sundberg to approve the amendments, approve the minutes for May 23rd, 2022. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll, call the question on the adoption of the minutes for May 23rd, 2022?
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo, we need your vote. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously to approve the May 23rd, 2022 council meeting minutes.
Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting in motion the end of slavery in the United States, and whereas it was not until June 19, 1865, that it was announced to those still enslaved in Texas that the people are informed in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free, and whereas the end of slavery celebration, which became known as Juneteenth, commemorates African American freedom and celebrates the successes gained through education and greater opportunity, and whereas, on a larger scale, celebrating Juneteenth reminds each of us of the precious promise of freedom, equality, and opportunity, which are at the core of the American dream, and two, reminds us that much work needs to be done to improve equity, inclusion, and equal rights in order to overcome racism in our country and in our community, and whereas on June 17, 2021, Aurora signed into law that every June 19th be a legal holiday in the city, recognizing that the end of slavery deserves celebration. Now, therefore, I, Mike Kaufman, Mayor of the City of Aurora, do hereby proclaim Saturday, June 19, 2022, as Juneteenth, National Independence Day, and encourage all community members to become aware of the significance of this celebration in American history and in the heritage of our nation, state, and city. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to be affixed on this first day of June 2022. Mike Kaufman, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado. Here's the proclamation. Do you have any words to share for us?
I do. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. I am Angel McKinley Page with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here in the City of Aurora. And on behalf of the Office of DEI, we want to thank you, Mayor and Council, for this proclamation acknowledging Juneteenth, as well as the ongoing efforts toward creating equity, inclusion, and belonging in the City of Aurora. So thank you.
Thank you.
Swearing in?
What's that?
The swearing in?
Oh, okay. We now have a swearing-in ceremony of our interim police chief.
Welcome back, Chief. Please repeat after me. I, Daniel Oates,
I, Daniel Oates,
having been duly appointed as interim police chief,
having been duly appointed as interim police chief,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and bear
that I will support and bear
true faith and allegiance
true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution and laws
to the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the State of Colorado,
of the State of Colorado,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Aurora,
of the City of Aurora,
that I will defend and protect
that I will defend and protect
the lives, safety, and property
the lives, safety, and property
of the people of Aurora
of the people of Aurora
without prejudice or favoritism,
without prejudice or favoritism,
always placing
the safety of others
before my own,
before my own,
that I will at all times
that I will at all times
conduct myself in an honorable manner,
conduct myself in an honorable manner,
and that I will perform
and that I will perform
the duties and responsibilities
the duties and responsibilities
of the office of Chief of Police
of the office of Chief of Police
for the City of Aurora
for the City of Aurora
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Chief.
Swearing-in ceremony of Civil Division and Criminal Division Attorneys by Associate Judge Dennis Spade.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's come down here. You want to face council or face your fans?
Well, that's tough.
I know, it's a tough call, isn't it?
They're more important, face the audience.
Okay. Let's get in there so they have a nice, good shot, folks. Okay. Good evening, and please repeat after me. I, Chris Flanagan.
I, Chris Flanagan.
I, Jennifer Jansica.
I, Jennifer Jansen.
I, Michael Desaulniers.
I, Michael Desaulniers.
I, Gilliam Velsing.
I, Gillian Falsing.
I, Peter Schulte.
I, Pete Schulte.
And I, Jennifer Hayden.
I, Jennifer Hayden.
If you could all raise your right hands and repeat after me. Having been duly appointed by the City Council of the City of Aurora
By the
City Council of the City of Aurora
as an Assistant City Attorney
as an Assistant City Attorney
for the City of Aurora, Colorado,
for
for the City of Aurora, Colorado,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
administer the affairs of such office
administer the affairs of such office
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States of America
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States of America
and the State of Colorado
and the State of Colorado
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Aurora
of the City of Aurora
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, everyone.
Public invited to be heard.
Mayor, we do have one individual, Robbie DeYoung.
Thank you, sir. Nice guy. My name is Robbie DeYoung, and I'm sure most of you know who I am by now. I am the admin for the next door group called Stolen and Vandalized Vehicles in Aurora. I'd love to talk to you about the speeding problems. I'd like to talk to you about the red lights being run. I'd like to talk to you about the tags and expired license plates. There is a multitude of things that I would like to talk to you about. But today, one of the things that I need to have more information on to give to the people that are asking me questions is there is a proposal that the city open an impound lot. Now, I understand that the city already has land appropriated for that. What are we looking at in the way of personnel? What are we looking at in the way of cost? And what will that city impound do that M&M can't?
Sure.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the only individual.
Is there anybody on?
No.
No? Very well. The adoption of the agenda, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Motion to amend the agenda to continue 9A to June 27th and 9B to allow the appellant presentation for 13B.
Can they be combined in one motion? Very well. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I'm sorry, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Zvonek, to continue item number 9A. Is there a date?
Actually, 13A, sorry, to June
I'm sorry.
27th.
Okay. I'm sorry. Item number 13A.
to June 27th, and then to approve the appellant presentation for 13B.
Okay, discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the Mayor Pro Tem Bergen amendment to item number 13A, 13B of the agenda.
Mayor Kaufman.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously to adopt the agenda with item 13A continued to June 27th and the appellant presentation approved for item 13B.
Okay.
No.
Then,
No, we're doing.
oh, so we don't need a motion for the agenda. Okay. Consent calendar, item number 10A through 10J. Motion.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
motion to approve 10A through 10J.
Been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Mayor, second.
Councilmember Lawson to approve the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10J. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Jurenski.
Yeah, I just would really like to thank staff on this. Out of 10 contracts, all 10 this time are in the state of Colorado, all 10 of these, and 3 of these 10 are businesses in Aurora. So I just want the public to know that we're making progress on supporting Aurora businesses.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, call for the question on the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10J.
Mayor?
I'm sorry.
We're missing our
Councilmember
colleagues.
McConnell? Oh, I'm sorry. Who desires to speak?
Can I?
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to note that many of our contracts are in the state of Colorado pretty routinely. But second, I just wanted to
I missed that. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that, for one, many of our contracts on a regular basis are in the state of Colorado. But more importantly, I would like to item 10E.
To what? I'm sorry.
Pull 10E.
10E? Okay. Then the question before us now is adoption of the consent calendar, item number 10A through 10D, and 10F through 10J. Discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of the consent calendar as amended.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Coombs, we need your vote.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously to approve the consent calendar with item 10E removed.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10E.
Item 10E is consideration to award a sole source contract in the amount of $150,000 to Falk Rocky Mountain, Inc., Aurora, Colorado, to provide medical health staffing services.
Brief presentation by staff.
Hi, Council. Thank you for having me. So this particular contract is to continue the FALC services for the mobile response team through the rest of 2022.
Questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
First, can you all hear me?
You're clear right now.
Okay. I'm not sure why that is. Thank you. I'll try stopping my video. So my main question is just that we seem to be having some issues in general with staffing from FALC. We have had some delays in response time. So I'm wondering if FALC is able to continue servicing this contract effectively, and if they're able to be providing this additional service of our response team when in many cases they seem to be fulfilling their complete contract with respect to paramedic services.
You were a little mumbled, but what I think you're asking is if they can appropriately respond with the mobile response team with their current staffing levels. As of right now, we do hire specific individuals for the mobile response team. It's not individuals that are serving on the ambulance staff otherwise. So we haven't had any issues, and we actually do have 3 backup paramedics that have been appropriately responding with the mobile response team.
Further discussion? Questions to staff? Seeing none, call for the question on item number 10, on the adoption of item number 10E.
Mayor, we need a motion in a second.
Mayor,
Yes, I'm sorry.
motion to approve 10E?
I'm sorry. It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 10E. Discussion. Seeing none, call for the question on the adoption of item number 10E.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt item 10E.
Thank you, Council.
Will Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11A.
Item 11A is Resolution 2022-103, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, ordering that public hearing be conducted regarding an amendment to the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Plan to create a second tax increment financing area.
Public hearing is now open.
Mayor, this is just to set the date for a public hearing.
I'm sorry?
Just to set the public hearing.
Oh, to set the public hearing, okay. Great. Motion? I'll tell you what, brief presentation by staff on item number 11A.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Chad Argenter. I'm with the Development Services Division, or Urban Renewal Authority. The agenda item tonight is just to pass a resolution to set a public hearing for July 11th to amend the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Plan. Whenever there is a substantive amendment to a plan or change to the plan, such as the creation of a tax increment financing area, it requires an amendment and a public hearing to have that. There is a fairly lengthy process involved in terms of amending the plan. In this case, it included updating a blight study and negotiations with several different taxing entities. And so this resolution tonight is simply to set the public hearing so we can discuss and hopefully approve the amended plan.
Questions of staff? Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
motion to approve 11A?
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 11A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11A. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-103.
Item number 11B through 11H. We will have to vote on them individually, but we will have one presentation and then have questions following that presentation on all of these items.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having me here today. I'm here to present 7.
Mayor, may I please?
Wait, yeah.
Are we having a presentation on each item? Because we've already done this in study session twice.
Give an overall presentation.
Overall, okay.
And then, but we're going to have to vote on them individually.
Okay, thank you.
Very well. Please proceed.
Yes, I'm here to present 7 agreements and resolutions for funding of 7 organizations here in the city of Aurora. The first one is for the 18th Juvenile Assessment Center, in the amount of $75,000. The Juvenile Assessment Center is requesting funding to meet the increased need and demand from community, parents in crisis, and referring entities such as Aurora Police and Youth Violence Prevention Program. Funds will assist in decreasing wait times for families and increasing outreach efforts of our clinicians and bilingual family liaison who will serve Aurora youth. Second is the University of Colorado AIM project with a requested amount of $40,000. Patients of gunshot wounds, stabbings, and other injuries resulting from a violent incident are approached in the hospital during a teachable moment by outreach workers and are offered bedside supports that will help reduce the likelihood of retaliatory behaviors and engage them in long-term services once they are released from the hospital. The third is Mosaic Unlimited with a recommended amount of $64,400. Funding would support two efforts that includes the Safe Haven response and the implementation of the Strengthening Families curriculum. Safe Haven is a critical incident response to help address secondary trauma experienced after a critical violent incident has occurred in the community. The Strengthening Families curriculum is an evidence-based family training program for high-risk and general families from our community. Parents and youth would attend weekly skills classes together, learning parenting skills and youth life skills and refusal skills to ensure that they're going down a positive path. The next one is Aurora Community Connection with a requested amount of $39,600. Funding would support the hiring of a full-time licensed mental health provider to serve youth and families and ensure that we're addressing the gap in need for mental health supports. The next is Fully Liberated Youth with a requested amount of $60,000. Programming would expand current services being offered for Aurora youth. Referrals would come from the Youth Violence Prevention Program, criminal justice agencies, and would offer youth outreach, mentorship, therapy, and wraparound support services to decrease high-risk behaviors. Next is Step Up Youth Corporation with the requested amount of $65,000. Organizations would provide an 8 to 15 weekly groups at 4 Aurora schools where youth, both middle and high school, would attend cognitive, behavioral, and life skills support groups to ensure that they're being supported and seeing a decrease in high-risk behaviors. Lastly, Struggle of Love Foundation, we're recommending $28,000 for them. Violence interruption is a community-based approach to reducing violent behaviors and the likelihood of any retaliatory behaviors. This organization has provided this response within their metro region, more recently expanding here into the Aurora community. This strategy is critical to ensure that we're seeing some level of critical incident responses after violent incidents have happened in Aurora.
Questions of staff on any of these items? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk, now please read the title of item number 11B.
Item 11B is Resolution 2022-104 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention University of Colorado AIM Project Funding Agreement.
Motions.
Mayor. Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11B.
Moved by Councilmember Kyle, second by
Medina.
Second by Councilmember Medina. Approve item number 11B. Discussion.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion.
Is there a second? Substitute motion.
Mayor, I'll second.
It's been, substitute motion has been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Lawson.
Actually, I may not need one. Was the amount 40?
Correct.
And, okay, so I'm going to withdraw mine.
Just for practice.
Yeah, for practice.
Okay, discussion on item number 11B, well, motion on item number 11B.
We had a motion and a second already.
Moved by Councilmember Kyle, seconded by Councilmember Medina, to approve item number 11B. Further discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
So on that one, originally their amount was higher, but they did receive a grant. Is that correct?
Yes, they've received grant funding to be able to continue the programming, so the current request is to have funding to continue to implement the strategy until the grant funding is able to be used.
And do you know when that grant funding is available, the date?
End of September.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
I'm sorry. Councilmember Coons.
Just now, I can't really hear you. I'm not sure if your mic is on.
Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, helps to have it on. Can you hear me now? Okay. Further discussion? Let's see, now the question before us is the adoption of item number 11B. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve Resolution 2022-104.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11C.
Item 11C is Resolution 2022-105 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention Fully Liberated Youth Funding Agreement.
Motion on item number 11C. Motion on item number 11C.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11C.
Okay, moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by Councilmember Medina to approve item number 11C. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11C. Call for the question.
The motion does not pass with 6 no votes, 4 yes votes. The no votes is Councilmember Zvonek, Lawson, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, Councilmember Gardner, Drinsky, and Sundberg.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11D.
Item 11D is Resolution 2022-106 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention Mosaic Unlimited, Inc. funding agreement.
Motion?
Motion to approve 11D.
Moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by?
Second, Murillo.
Seconded by Councilmember Murillo to approve item number 11E, or 11D. 11D. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Drinsky. I'm sorry, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a substitute motion, and my substitute motion is to not fund the safe haven portion, but to fund the strengthening families for $40,000.
Moved by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. Substitute motion. Second, I need a second for the substitute motion. And seconded by Councilmember Lawson. Discussion on the Bergen substitute motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. I guess why do we not want to fund the safe haven portion?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you. I believe that churches should open their churches up when there is a major incident in our society, and they should not ask for government assistance with our taxpayers' monies. I think that is, something that they should all do, and so I'm very happy to support the strengthening families, but I just honestly feel that the other part should be just done by volunteers of churches.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, call for the question on the Bergen substitute amendment to item number 11D.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, 4 no votes. The no votes, Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Murillo, and Gardner.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11E.
Item 11E is Resolution 2022-107 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention Step Up Youth Corporation Funding Agreement.
Motion on item number 11E. Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 11E.
Moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by?
Second, Murillo.
Second by Councilmember Murillo. It almost died for lack of a second. Second by Councilmember Murillo. Discussion?
Mayor, I have a question. On this one, looking at the scope of work, why is Rangeview and Hinckley, which I know those are important schools, but why weren't other schools chosen as part of this? I mean, you have 2 middle schools that are connected with Rangeview and Hinckley, which, that's fine, but what about Central? What about Overland? For this one, I'm struggling with this one because it's just limited to 2. And then it's connected to 2 high schools when there's other schools in the area that also would value from this assistance. So I'm struggling with this one in general.
Yeah, and that's based on how APS collaborated with them and how they're prioritizing the need for very specific outreach supports. YVP is also primarily focusing on Aurora Central and some of the other schools, and so we'll be able to work together with this organization to ensure there isn't a gap in services being offered. So we'll be able to complement their response.
I don't quite understand. When you complement their response, what do you mean exactly? What will you be doing, the YVP program?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're developing our multidisciplinary team APS already has a task multidisciplinary team that we have at Aurora Central. So for youth that are being identified, instead of being referred to this organization, they'll be referred to us, to the outreach specialist, or to other outreach organizations that are providing us secondary supports.
Okay, and then how come you're not focusing on other districts like Cherry Creek District, Smoky Hill? There's other schools too that have the need, but it seems like you're just focusing on some that are limited to me when there should be more of an overall approach. So thank you for your question, for your answer to that. I just struggle with this one because of the limitations.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we on E. Question before us is the adoption of item number 11E. Call for the question.
The motion passes with, the motion fails with 4 yes votes, 6 no votes. The no votes from Councilmember Zvonek, Councilmember Lawson, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, Councilmember Gardner, Councilmember Drinsky, and Councilmember Sundberg.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11F.
Item 11F is Resolution 2022-108 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention Struggle of Love Foundation Funding Agreement.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and move 11F.
It's moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Medina.
Seconded by Councilmember Medina to approve item number 11F. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11F. Call for the question.
The motion does not pass with 6 no votes, 4 yes votes. The no votes from Councilmembers Zvonek, Lawson, Bergen, Gardner, Drinsky, and Sundberg.
Would clerk please read the title to item number 11G?
Item 11G is Resolution 2022-109 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention 18th Juvenile Assessment Center Funding Agreement.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Murillo.
move to approve agenda item 11G.
It's been moved by Councilmember Murillo, seconded by
Marcano.
Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 11F. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Drinsky.
Yes, I would like to make a substitute motion to fund this program for the full asked amount of $75,000.
Second.
Substitute motion has been moved by Councilmember Drinsky, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to, I'm sorry, what was it? Fully fund to $75,000?
Yes.
Fully fund the program to $75,000. Discussion? Seeing no further discussion, call for the question on the Drinsky substitute amendment.
The motion passes to approve Resolution 2022-109 as amended.
We are back to the motion to
11H.
Is it 11, which one are we on? No, we still have to vote on the, we just voted on the
That was a
substitute.
substitute.
Do we have to vote on the whole amendment?
That was an amendment.
Oh, no, okay. Substitute amendment is the new motion. Okay, very well. Will clerk now please read the title to item number 11H.
Item 11H is Resolution 2022-110 to fund the Youth Violence Prevention Program Community Intervention 18th Juvenile Assessment Center Funding Agreement.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Motion to approve 11H.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Lawson to approve item number 11H. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of item number 11H.
Councilmember Coombs, we need your vote. Thank you. The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-110.
Time is now 7:09. We will, council will stand in recess until 7:15 for an opportunity to do an announcement for the call line. Council is in recess.
Members of the public who would like to speak on an ordinance and have not already spoken to an operator, press star 3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 to be connected, and then press star 3. Council is taking a short break to allow any additional speakers to sign up. Please be patient and stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information.
Only I can hear.
The meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, June 6, 2022 is called back to order. Will clerk now please read the title to item number 12A?
Item 12A is Ordinance 2022-31, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado for a zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 15.4 acres of land from Airport District to Mixed-Use Regional located along Stephen D. Hogan Parkway and west of Valdi Street.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you. This is Asia Tibbs. I'm Asia Tibbs, the planner for the Planning and Development Services Department. Before you is the Aurora Aurora 1 zoning map amendment. The applicant, GB Capital LLC, is requesting the approval of a zoning map amendment for 15.4 acres. The request is a zone from Airport District to the Mixed Use Regional District. The subject site is located along Stephen D. Hogan Parkway, just west of Valdi Street. As you can see, the subject site and the surrounding areas are primarily vacant, with the exception of the agricultural residential property to the south of the site, and then the E470 administrative building, which sits along Valdi and Stephen D. Hogan. The subject site is designated as the Innovation District in the Aurora Places Comprehensive Plan. The proposed request for a mixed-use regional zone is compatible with the designated place type and permits compatible uses with the plan. The property was originally zoned Airport District with the update of the UDO in 2019. It was considered the most similar district to the E470 Research and Development District, which is what it was zoned previous to the UDO update. During the recent update or review and approval of the master plan known as the Aurora 1 master plan, it was determined that commercial and single-family attached uses were appropriate in this area. The master plan was approved and is in existence, and as part of that master plan, the rezone to MUR to be consistent with the surrounding area and also to allow the commercial and single-family attached residential uses was requested, and that is why the rezoning is before you today. The applicant is in attendance but does not have a presentation there available for any questions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Understand there's no presentation by the applicant?
Correct.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
No.
Are there any questions by council members to staff or to the applicant? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Sorry. Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Move to approve 12A.
Moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by
Jurenski.
Councilmember Jurenski to approve item number 12A. Discussion. See no discussion. The question before us is the adoption of item number 12A. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve Ordinance 2022-31.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number, item number 13A is moved to continue to June 27th. Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 13B?
Item 13B is Resolution 2022-110, a public hearing without related ordinance to consider an appeal by an abutting property owner of the Planning and Zoning Commission approval of the Alta Addison multifamily site plan with adjustments.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening again. This is an application for Alta Addison multifamily. This is an appeal request from the Planning Commission decision. The subject site is a 9.12 acre site. It's currently vacant and located within the Pine Ridge Ranch planned development. That planned development designates this site as a multifamily residential development and as a permitted use. The site is located approximately 1,500 feet north of the intersection of South Addison Court and Aurora Parkway, which you can see on the south side of this slide. The property is bordered by E470 right-of-way located along the west side of the site, the Piney Creek Open Space and Red-Tailed Hawk Park to the north and east side of the site, and the Saddle Rock LDS Church, which is located to the south. The neighborhoods of Heritage Eagle Bend and also Highland Villas, which is part of Heritage Eagle Bend, are located south of the site along Addison Court. Let's see if I can show you a picture here. So this is the intersection. Highland Villas is located here, and then Eagle Bend is the rest. Talon's Reach is also located north of the site across from the open space. Here's an image of the proposed site plan. It is turned, so the north is to the left, and then the E470 is along the bottom side of the page. The proposal is to construct 186 multifamily units within 6 separate buildings. Addison Court has been extended from the south side of the site to draw into the site and provide building frontage for majority of the structures, all but 2. Off-street parking has been provided and met through the requirements of tuck-under garage parking, covered carport parking, and uncovered surface parking spaces. An additional 30 tandem parking spaces has been provided, but is not counted towards meeting the off-street requirements. Amenities are proposed throughout the site. The project includes a clubhouse and pool house, which is located towards the entrance. A natural wetland area to the north of the site, which you can see here, and it borders along the Piney Creek Trail, which goes to the east, the top of the page. There are 2 trail connections provided to that trail between the development and the existing site. There's a landscaped buffer area to the west of the site along E470 as well. Building elevations are modern in design, but they do comply with the building design standards established within the UDO, as well as the Pine Ridge Ranch GDP. This proposal meets all site plan requirements with the exception of the 4 adjustments that were requested and approved by the Planning Commission. These are primarily due to the site size and the constraints with the surrounding area. The first request is to allow 2 of the proposed 6 multifamily buildings to front on adjacent open space rather than the street. Again, this is because of the limited street access from Addison. The second is to remove the requirement for a sound wall along E470. This has been reviewed by E470. They are a referral for the project, and they do support the request. They've asked that the wall not be located in their right-of-way because of the grades on the property. Placing the wall south or outside of the MUE moves the wall below to where the sound would actually be mitigated. And then the third and fourth adjustments are both for encroachments into the existing buffer that's required along the open space. Here it's the top of the page on the east side of the site. This is for a sidewalk and retaining walls, which are required. This has been worked with PROS. PROS supports this request. And again, it's to provide better connectivity between the parks and open space and the site throughout. Again, staff is supportive of all 4 adjustment requests. Here's the approval criteria that staff has reviewed. Staff found that the request was in compliance of section 1.46-5.4.3.b.2.c.1. I won't go through all of the standards, but in general, as I mentioned, there's specific criteria for adjustments and whether they can be permitted. All of those criteria have been met with the 4 adjustment requests, and they are compliant with the mitigation measures outlined in the UDO. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the Housing for All policy. The existing city infrastructure and proposed improvements do have the capacity to serve this proposed development. And then staff also found that it was compatible with surrounding uses, and the applicant has planned mitigation measures to address compatibility with E470. This application was approved by the Planning Commission through a vote after a public hearing held on April 27th. An appeal to the Planning Commission decision was filed with the City Manager's Office on May 3rd, 2022. This was filed by Mr. Richard Madison Jr., who is representing the Master Board of Directors for Heritage Eagle Bend Golf Club. The dispute is specifically regarding the site plan approval criterion C and E. As I mentioned, these are both regarding compatibility with the proposal to the surrounding area and the ability for the infrastructure to serve the project. Staff does, again, feel that those criteria are being met. Lastly, the request is coming before you, City Council, to determine if you should uphold the decision that was made by the Planning Commission at that public hearing. That is all I have for this evening. I think next we have the applicant.
Thank you. Presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Walter Armour, and I represent Wood Partners. We're a national apartment builder, headquartered in Atlanta, but we have offices nationally, and each office acts independently. And I head up the Colorado team. We've been in Colorado in the Front Range for about 15 years, and over that time, we've built around 3,500 apartment units. We have a basic philosophy that we approach every project with. And that is, we want a project to reflect. We want a project to reflect their location in terms of style and scale. We want projects to contribute in a positive manner to the surrounding neighborhoods. And we also search for projects on sites that are already zoned and allocated for the type of use we want. This project does all those things, I think, very effectively. Given that Aja went over our project pretty thoroughly, I'll just hit on some of the key points. Again, we chose this site because multifamily is allowed under the existing zoning and comprehensive plan. Given the site constraints, we're pursuing kind of a boutique-style project, so this is going to have a look and a feel much more like a townhome or a condominium project versus a typical apartment. This provides much-needed housing for kind of the missing middle. The area has a relatively limited stock of apartment housing. And we've worked hard to integrate and mesh the project with the surrounding area, and I'll go into that in more detail later. Aja had a similar map. This shows where the project is located, up against E470. Most of what you see under construction, the apartments to the left and the townhomes to the left, that's already been constructed. But it gives you a good sense of where we sit relative to the freeway and the park and the other developments in the area. Our 186 units will include a mix of housing options, ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms. Amenities are pretty typical. Aja mentioned them. I won't rehash that except to bring up that we have taken very seriously the idea of meshing this project with the area around it, the neighborhood around it. And in doing so, I'm going to talk a lot about the trail system that we put in. As Aja mentioned, we'll have a mix of garages and surface parking, as well as EV charging stations. From the beginning of spring 2021, we've been working with the planning department, as well as the other departments of the city, in particular on this project, given its location and surroundings. We've worked very closely with the Parks Department. The idea here from the beginning has been to collaborate with the city to create an approachable, pedestrian-focused landscape and to use materials that are in sync with the surrounding community. The design itself was driven in part, of course, by zoning and GDP requirements. We wanted a clean and polished look. It's a very tidy, beautiful neighborhood, and we wanted to contribute positively in that way. And we also wanted to make sure we could appeal to a large range of possible residents. These images provide some insight into our design inspiration. Obviously, the Front Range, the mountains, the peaks, the slopes, and then we borrowed some architectural styling from the recently completed Talon's Reach Library. This rendering is showing the entrance to our project from the end of Addison Court looking north. So, as I mentioned, we really want to mesh with the community, and this offered us some unique opportunities to do so. One way we've done this is through our trail system, and this map shows in red the trail system that we've put together. And I think the most important takeaway here is that this trail system is not just for our residents. This trail system was designed to service the local community around us. To the right of this image at the end of Addison Court, that is an access point for the public. Currently, there's no way for residents on Addison Court to actually access the Piney Creek Trail System without a long walk around around the Aurora Parkway. So we're providing an entrance path there for residents. As Aja mentioned, there's 2 points of connection to the actual Piney Creek Trail system. Those can be seen at the top of the image. And we have 21% of our site as open space, and we're fortunate to have a beautiful riparian area that we're turning into a riparian viewing area. So it'll have bench seating, it'll have some educational signage, and it'll be a peaceful place for folks to view the riparian area. And what's important here is that not only for our residents, but also we'll be inviting people from Piney Creek Trail System up into our area to take advantage of those common areas. Another often overlooked community benefit is the housing itself. As I mentioned, there are some apartment complexes in the neighborhood, but it's primarily single-family homes. And the median Aurora family earns around $80,000 a year. Our target audience, which would include folks like teachers, fire, public safety, they typically make between $65,000 and $79,000 a year. Problem is that in this neighborhood, the average home price is over $800,000, clearly out of reach for those folks. Our analysis revealed that the monthly budget for the average family in Aurora would be around $2,000 a month for housing. Our average rental rate, it ranges from $1,400 to $2,400, and the average is around $2,095. So we think this really, we're striving to provide a diversity of housing with this project. As I mentioned, we've been working with the city for the past year, all the departments, but especially planning, parks, fire, and traffic. We conducted all the required studies. So that includes, among others, traffic, natural habitat, and wetlands. All these studies were done in accordance with the City of Aurora guidelines. They were reviewed and accepted by the city, various departments. Through the process, we had not received any public comment until we put forth, in accordance with the City of Aurora guidelines, public notice to the registered neighborhood organizations at the end of 2021. But we quickly realized there were some issues, and we moved to address those, and I'll get into that in a minute. Our philosophy, again, is to find sites that are zoned for the type of use that we intend to build there. We believe the city process and planning works best. We want to be a part of that process. We don't want to be fighting it. No rezonings for us. In 2016, there was a public general development plan amendment for this site, and it was approved by the council, and it reaffirmed that multifamily was a use by right. In addition to that, the comprehensive plan, which was approved by this council in 2018, designated this site as within a commercial hub. And I would call your attention to the map here, which is from the City of Aurora. You can see our site located in this commercial hub. And actually, the first element of a commercial hub in the city code is, and I quote, include medium or high density housing to expand a local customer base. So we think that does this. I'll also mention that the project is in Subarea C, which, were it not for the adjustments we were requesting, it would have been an administrative approval. As this slide shows, the work we've done with the planning department and the other city departments has produced a project that we believe and Planning Commission believes meets the UDO criteria. I think maybe equally or even more important, we've really tried to meet the City of Aurora goals. Diversity of housing, which I mentioned, the amenities and the pedestrian focus to create a healthy community, significant green space for a thriving environment, and of course the trail connections that provide mobility and contribute to health and well-being of the residents and those of the neighborhood. These are the adjustments criteria, which I won't go into. Aja covered that. As she mentioned, we are looking at 4 adjustments. That was the reason that we went to the Planning Commission. In each case, we feel like the adjustments we were seeking, while they might have been driven by site constraints, in the end, and thanks to the planning department's help, made the project better. In the case of the buildings fronting open space, we were able to keep parking away from the open space in the park and instead front the buildings there. Adjustments 2 and 3 allowed us to install the trail system that's going to be serving as an amenity for the greater neighborhood. And as she mentioned, adjustment 4 was for a sound wall that was proven to be ineffective. So we started this project in May 2021, and we followed your guidelines, the City of Aurora guidelines, at every step. We had not gotten any feedback. As I mentioned, we notified the registered neighborhood groups, organizations, in December of 21, and we did not receive any feedback. So candidly, we were somewhat surprised when we heard the comments at the Planning Commission, but regardless, we took those comments seriously, and we've been working very hard to understand those concerns and mitigate those concerns for the neighbors. So I want to just quickly touch on the basis of the appeal from the neighbors and kind of our feedback in response to that. So one of the main items that they talk about is the scale, density, height, multimodal traffic impacts, and hours of operations. That's directly from their appeal. As this map shows, we're up against the freeway, but there are much larger projects. Just to the north of us is Talon's Reach. That's a 510-unit multifamily project. To the south of us is the Springs at Eagle Bend, and then the 2 privately owned projects, Heritage Eagle Bend, the applicant and the appeal, and Highland Villas. Those each have 140 and 143 units. And there's actually a rather industrial-looking self-storage right across the street. So we think that at 3 stories and 186 units, we really fit right in nicely. We don't think we're an outlier in the least. The next biggest concern from the neighbors was traffic. Just to reiterate, we did have a traffic study done in compliance with the City of Aurora that was accepted and approved by the city. Some of the concerns the neighbors brought up was when that study was conducted. It was August of 2021. Obviously, school was out at that time, and it was tail end of the pandemic. But adjustments were made for those conditions, and those adjustments are outlined within the city requirements and the professional engineering requirements that our traffic consultant followed. And I should mention, I think that the city traffic engineer is here if there are technical questions, and we also have our traffic engineer here should there be technical questions. What we learned was that the infrastructure that exists is sufficient all the way out past 2040. Even so, we offered to pay for a traffic signal or put funds in escrow for a future traffic signal should it be warranted. Unfortunately, the city was not able to accept those funds because it simply wasn't warranted. That traffic signal, they did not anticipate being warranted until at least 2040. We have agreed to pay for traffic calming measures, and we've since had multiple meetings with the HOAs and set up a monthly meeting call to talk about construction traffic. I didn't mention it earlier, but we're a vertically integrated company. We build our own projects, and so we tend to have very close control over the construction groups that we work with. Another concern from the neighbors was having a single point of ingress and egress to the property. If you look at the larger Heritage Eagle Bend development, it's really a series of neighborhoods within a neighborhood. And this is just one of dozens of examples. This portion of Heritage Eagle Bend has 122 units with a single point of access, so it's very common. The other items that were of concern to the neighbors were the design aesthetic and also parks and wildlife were abutting the open space. With regard to the design aesthetic, as I mentioned, the design was informed by existing zoning to a degree, but we went back to the drawing board after we learned of this concern, and we gave the neighbors 5 different options to choose from in terms of color palette, and I'm grateful that they did choose a selection, and we've since gone with their choice. I'm just going to point out here, this was the original color scheme and then the updated based on the neighbor survey. While personally I liked the first scheme, I do agree that the second scheme is a bit more in keeping with the surrounding architecture and color schemes. The other item of concern was with regard to the open space and the parks and wildlife. They did provide us some helpful information. We've re-engaged our environmental consultants, and they're updating their studies based on the information that were provided by the adjacent property owners. We'll take that into account. It'll be part of the site plan submittal, and it'll definitely inform our construction activities. So that's all I have. I think, in summary, the basis of this appeal is not the adjustments that we asked for at the Planning Commission. Those weren't even mentioned. This is a multifamily location that is clearly established, even encouraged as a use by right, something reaffirmed by the City Council twice since 2016. And the project complies with the UDO, the major adjustments criteria, and the City of Aurora goals. I guess my ask of you is, as a developer or somebody we approach this very responsibly, we've made sure we lived up to the standards, the high standards placed on us by the Planning Commission, and would ask for consideration of that. Thank you.
Presentation by the appellant.
Good evening, Mayor Kaufman, Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, and City Council members. My name is Rick Madison. I'm president of the Heritage Eagle Bend Board of Directors, and I want to thank you for hearing our appeal this evening. The Heritage Eagle Bend community abuts the proposed development at the, is that better? Thank you. At the south end of Addison Court. As we stated in our appeal, we recognize the right of use concept. But the development right, is tempered by reasonable planning and zoning ordinances and regulations that are supposed to take into consideration the existing surrounding development and the burdens that are going to be placed on those existing developments by the proposed development. The city's Unified Development Ordinance requires, and I'm going to quote, the city's existing infrastructure and public improvements, including but not limited to its streets, have adequate capacity to serve the proposed development. This project fails in that respect. It's a classic example of trying to squeeze too large of a development into too small of a space. There's only one way in and there's only one way out. And that is along a road that's already pockmarked with on-street parking from the neighboring Highland Villas complex. There's no public transportation to serve the area. It's a auto-dependent, car-dependent community. And despite what the developer said, the comparable projects in that area, including Heritage Eagle Bend, don't have a one-way in and one-way out. We all have a well-developed road structure, just like you would have in many of the neighborhoods around Aurora. We submit that the traffic study supporting the project's flawed, and it fails the city's requirement by undercounting the existing traffic. Section 3.2 of the city's traffic impact study guidelines requires the study to present existing traffic volumes data for the site, including AM and PM peak hour volumes. Now, that developer's traffic study measured traffic on South Addison Court, the only way in, the only way out, over 72 hours from August 10th through August 12th in 2021. Now, during that time, a large percentage of workers were working from home or not working at all because of COVID. And that disruption of normal commuting patterns continues today. When and how we return to somewhat of a normal commuting pattern is just pure speculation. But clearly there will be traffic that couldn't be accounted for in that study. But more important, Cherry Creek School District started school 4 days after the traffic study was completed. By not waiting a mere 4 days for an accurate traffic count, it would appear that the study purposely avoided accounting for the increased traffic that comes during the school year. There's a Latter-day Saints church at the end of Addison Court, be abutting this development. In the morning on school days, there's a parade of parents taking children to religious classes about 7 o'clock in the morning, then coming back out to take them on to their regular schools. Cherry Creek, school buses travel the road between 7:30 and 9:15 in the morning, and then again in the afternoon. And there is a parade of accompanying cars as parents drop off kids, pick up kids at the bus stops. You know, the traffic study avoided accounting for any of that traffic, and it therefore it fails the city's requirement, the stated requirement for an accurate traffic count. The complex is going to have under 186 units. The city estimates that there'll be as many as 465 people living in that complex. Now, curiously, the traffic study estimates that that complex will generate only 47 vehicle trips leaving the complex during the morning peak go-to-work hours. That's either a monumental shift to people working from home, or it's a serious undercount of traffic that's going to be leaving there. Common sense has got to indicate that many more vehicles are going to leave that in that morning peak go-to-work hour, whether it's for work, school transportation, shopping, and it's going to join the existing school buses and the parents and the neighbors leaving this complex and heading up Addison to South Aurora Parkway. You know, your city's traffic impact study guidelines require developers to make a good faith effort to accurately count current traffic and then use accepted traffic engineering manuals to extrapolate future volumes in the vicinity, including the additional traffic that's going to be generated by this development. You know, at some point, it becomes a simple exercise with a calculator. And it makes sense, I guess, from a development standpoint, because it gives you a standard method that can be applied across all development, whether you're at. But I'll wrap up with this observation. You know, we all know people that are book smart. They're really geniuses, but they have no common sense. And this is kind of that situation. The traffic study supporting the development, you know, it applies the accepted engineering manuals, albeit starting from a flawed count, and it arrives at a calculated conclusion. But there's no human input at all into that calculation. If you take the time to look up from the manuals, you look beyond the numbers on the paper, and you look at the road conditions that are out there that are going to have to handle that traffic, we believe anyway, common sense are going to tell you that jamming 465 people at the end of a dead-end court is not the right thing to do. So thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to be heard?
Yes, Mayor, we have one person on the call-in line.
Please proceed.
Lynn, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hello, and thank you all. One of the other things that I did not see in the traffic study for the Alta Addison proposed division is access to 470. Across Gartrell, it's a 2-lane road that crosses 470, and either exiting southbound on Gartrell or northbound, it is still, it's just terrible. During rush hour, I've sat as long as 6 minutes on the southbound waiting to turn left to go towards Heritage Eagle Bend. And that's now. The same thing is true of people exiting northbound. When they try to get out onto Gartrell, they have to cross 2 full lanes of traffic in order to get over to the left turn lane to get onto Aurora Parkway. Today, I wanted to see the Addison Street for myself and was northbound on Aurora Parkway. I sat at the left turn lane for almost a full minute at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and was hard pressed to make a left turn there. And I turned in front of a fellow who had been sitting there for at least as long as I had been there, waiting for some sort of a break between the southbound and northbound lanes of Aurora Parkway. I was wondering if the city and then the Planning Commission has taken into that planning for 470. How is that going to be done? There's already quite a few accidents that happen there. And as I said, I didn't see anything in the study that showed that that was part of the traffic study. So if such a study has not been done, has the city got that on their plan. And I would ask you to consider that as well when looking at the traffic patterns for this particular project. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
No.
Very well. Questions from council members to staff, to the applicant, or to the appellant?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes, thank you. First to staff, can you talk to the compatibility issue? Because I know the UDO was mentioned several times, and my understanding from the developer was that the staff was encouraging a modern urban look. Is that in our UDO for sub-area C?
No. Staff did not determine whether it's modern or contemporary or traditional. That's entirely up to the applicant. What we do require is that they meet architectural standards in the UDO, and then in this case, because they're a GDP, they have an additional set of architectural standards in the GDP. The GDP does not specify style. It simply does, amount of masonry, roof structure, those types of things. And the applicant did make revisions to their elevations to comply.
And then on the UD or the GDP, so it's not an Eagle Bend GDP, it's the Piney Creek?
Piney Creek Ranch GDP, yes.
And Highland Villas, which is right next door, wasn't that part of Eagle Bend?
Yes.
So that is the dividing line there?
I think so.
Because I just thought it was part of Eagle Bend, but.
Yeah. And I think Piney Creek Ranch GDP may have been a renamed part of Eagle Bend GDP. They did a couple of different amendments and called it different things. And this amendment specifically applied to this parcel.
Okay, and then regarding the roof line, it's a little bit different than any of the structures in my ward, Southeast Aurora. Of course, there's commercial, which is a little bit different than obviously residential, but it doesn't, in my opinion, align with a lot of the apartment and townhomes nearby. So was that roof elevation dictated by?
It was a request of the applicant. There is something in the GDP that requires a certain number of distinct ridge lines, but that's the extent of the requirement.
Okay, and then regarding the masonry, what is the, do we still have the 15% requirement?
That I'd have to check on.
And do you know what their percentage is?
I know that they're meeting the requirement, but I can pull that for you. Yeah.
Okay, and then on the notification, and I don't know if this would go to you or someone else, but there was a huge issue. So when the applicant, or when the developer mentioned the, that originally the date, I don't have it in front of me, I think it was December, that notification went out to neighbors and they didn't have any neighborhood comments. What I understand from the residents is that they never received notification, and I know our process probably needs to be changed because the notification has to go to surrounding areas within certain distance. And I think possibly a notification might have gone to Heritage Eagle Bend. None went to Highland Villas, and my understanding the reason it didn't go to them was because they're not registered. Do you know anything about that?
I do. So code requires us to provide notice to abutting property owners only and registered neighborhood groups within 1 mile. Highland Villas was not a registered neighborhood group. Eagle Bend was, and they did receive notice both with the original application submittal as well as the subsequent public hearings.
So since Highland Villas is not registered, then those neighbors that are literally right there would not be notified.
To note, though, they do have a sign posting on the property, which is visible from Addison Court.
Okay, which also brings me to my second point on the notification, which is then when we progress down the road, the notification about the public hearing with the Planning Commission, I was literally having my town hall during that time frame, and the residents were telling us they didn't get proper notification, and we found out that the sign had the address of the city here, And not that it was a virtual meeting, is that correct?
That's correct. And we re-noticed and reposted and reheld a public hearing according to code.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for staff.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff, the applicant, or the appellant?
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem, please.
I have questions to
Sure.
the applicant.
Very well.
Yes, hi.
Hi. So you heard my questions to staff. On the roof lines, so it was your choice to make that roof line design?
It was, sure. Yeah, we came up with what we thought was an inspired design, again, kind of hearkening to the front range ridges in a way that would break up the E470, which is in the background. We also staggered the buildings in order to block the freeway from the park. And so I guess fundamentally it was, and then we worked with staff to make sure that we designed it in accordance with all the regulations from the various plans that influence it.
Okay, and then on the units, you mentioned the average rent $1,400 to $2,400, but you have 3 bedrooms that would be closer to $3,000, I think?
I think we checked our performance today, and the top end was around $2,400.
With $2,400.
Yeah.
And how many one-bedrooms do you have?
We have around 30 3-bedrooms, 30 2-bedrooms, and the rest are ones, so 60 from about 120 one-bedrooms.
Okay.
Approximately.
Okay. And then you said with the next to it, the commercial area, it's a very small commercial area, so it's not like it's next door to like a Southlands or the Target. It's just really the church and the storage units.
The adjacent uses are a church, and then one farther down is the self-storage facility. The commercial hub is a bigger area that includes kind of the whole, I would say, northeast side of the intersection of Gartrell up to us and across the freeway where the shopping center is, the Target Center.
Okay, and I'm glad you've changed the color, but can you talk about the sound wall? I know that was one of the variances that you requested.
Sure. Candidly, we could put a sound wall in, but the elevation of the sound wall is going to be about 10 feet below the freeway. So for a sound wall to be effective, it has to be at the freeway to block the sound. So what we did is we had an acoustic survey done, and we proposed alternative means of construction. So materials and insulation and special windows and things like that would actually do a better job than putting a sound wall in that wouldn't be work at all.
Okay, thank you. And then also, I think I asked this to, I think to someone with your company about the bus stop. Did
Yes.
you ever determine where the bus stop would be?
We did. We went out and surveyed and watched the kids getting picked up, and the bus stops are currently on the right, on the east side of Addison Court. And so that is one of the questions that I think our traffic calming discussion is going to address. One possible measure is that the traffic engineer from the city mentioned was a raised sidewalk with flat lights to alert traffic, things of that nature. But yes, to answer your question, the bus stops were on the east side of Aurora Court.
Of Addison or Aurora?
I'm sorry, Addison.
Of Addison.
Addison Court.
Okay, thank you very much.
Further questions of staff, the applicant,
May
or
I
the
ask
appellant?
another one to staff?
Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Sorry, I forgot to ask about traffic to staff. Hi, Carly.
Good evening. I'm Carly Campuzano, Traffic Manager at the City of Aurora.
Thank you. So my question is on the traffic counts, because we just heard mention of not feeling that they were accurate depiction of what traffic would really look like, especially with this school not being in session. So could you address that?
Yes, so for us, when we scope the traffic studies, we look at the surrounding area and determine if there's any restrictions we should put on when data should be collected. And this site, since it's multifamily and since it's really a pretty far distance from the nearest school, we did not think it would be appropriate to have to make the applicant wait to collect data until school is in session, because that's really not our standard practice unless the school is directly adjacent. Because even with the school being out, parents are still bringing their kids to activities and things like that, and it really doesn't have an impact on general data collection in the peak hours. The controlling peak hour is also normally the PM peak, which is maybe 4 to 5 or 5 to 6, and so that doesn't overlap with the school peak, so it really shouldn't have an impact in this scenario.
And as you know, I have many, many requests to your department on traffic issues over the years, and a lot of them happen to be around schools, elementary schools and high schools and middle schools. And the traffic has always been a huge concern that we have to always mitigate after the fact, in terms of, do we have to put signals in, which we've done in some of them, sometimes four-way stops. We've had to work with the proposed elementary school in Blackstone, just to change even some of the traffic patterns and so forth. So it is a huge issue. So I know that we don't normally count it. I think we should probably change that standard, because I think it's a very important factor. So question on the school bus stop, could you address that?
Sorry, what was the exact question on the school bus stop?
Well, the location mentioned that it was going to be on the east side of Addison, so I don't know how a bus can turn around there and not cause major congestion.
So generally when the infrastructure is designed, the designer runs specific turning vehicles to make sure that the turning movements can be made, and that'll be addressed when the civil engineering documents are produced. So I don't anticipate that that'll be an issue, because that's something that is generally worked through with our standard civil plan process.
And then the kids would be, you feel that it would be safe for the kids to be there at the bus stop and get on the bus in that area?
I think so. So my colleague, somebody in my group, met the developer as well as the HOA out in the field about a month ago and went over some of these items. And we're looking at different traffic calming items along with the applicant, and they've committed to constructing some of these. Some of the items that they're looking at for traffic calming are really centered around that location and a potential crossing and how to make that safe. So I do feel like that'll be adequately addressed by the applicant as we work through the design.
Okay, and then my last question for you is on the emergency access. I'm very concerned that a fire truck, it's one way in and one way out. I think there was mention of another access point, but I really don't see that happening.
Can I defer that to Mike Dean, who I think is here with Fire Life Safety? Mike.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Mike Dean. I work within the building division. I represent life safety. The fire department access that was set up for this site is very circuitous right at the very end before it hits the LDS church. And what's interesting about it is it's already pre-established. There's already a 15-foot fire lane easement that will come into the southeast corner of the LDS church. Once that connection is made, there will be a secondary access point to the overall site. This is only for emergency access, and so there are some gating elements and bollard elements that will be associated to this. So you just need to be aware that, again, this is emergency access into the site, not public access.
So the emergency access right now is just a walking path?
No, it's basically what is going to happen is I've dealt with a gentleman. His name is Max Mueller. He is with the Wood Partners Company. He has actually sent me a document for a license agreement for the next dedication of the last fire lane easement needed to create that second point of access. That'll be located in the southeast corner, again, of the LDS church. So if you look at the map, as you're looking at it, you'll see that the storage facility site has actually put a fire lane easement directly abutting the site, the LDS site.
Okay, I think she's going to try to pull up the map. It's kind of hard to visualize. Yeah, and if that's the case, I was just very concerned about the fire truck ability to get in there and with adequate response time.
May I? If you take a look right here, Here's the LDS church. Here, this filing easement that you see in this location coming up right there, abutting the property, that's where there's a gate already existing, and it's ready for the next portion of the filing easement, which is a very small rectangular section that will connect to the main drive aisle coming into the LDS church.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
And then may I address the
Please proceed.
appellant?
Yes.
Hi, Rick.
Hi.
So you've heard about the fire access, the bus stop. Do you have any further concerns about that?
Excuse me. The fire, I think the fire access you're talking about is really a secondary access. As I understand the fire code, for something 3 stories or higher, you have to provide a secondary access for an aerial truck. So that's the one you're talking about. Whether or not that's adequate is dependent on a lot of factors, I think. Is the church in session? Is the church parking lot crowded? Is it winter and that stuff isn't plowed? If I were living there, what I'd really be worried about is not the trucks coming in, but if you picture a narrow road coming down with cars on both sides and the fire trucks and the attendant police vehicles coming in, I don't know how you're going to get those 400 and whatever some people coming back out in a safe manner. That'd be a bigger concern, I think, than getting the trucks into the structure.
And then just lastly, question on the relationship that you had in terms of the neighborhood input, and did you feel heard?
I certainly I think our residents spoke loud and clear once we became aware of the project in the hearing. Nobody at our administrative office, and I won't argue whether we got a response, initial notice back in 2021 or whenever it was. Certainly nobody there recalls it, but neither here nor there. Once the hearings were started, certainly we've had adequate time to voice those opinions. Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff, the applicant or the appellant?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. So my first question is of staff regarding the single entry point. I know the applicant mentioned that there are other areas, one entry point, but Aurora Parkway is a pretty large and busy road. I mean, in my ward on Quincy, where we have the Cherry Creek Racket, a neighborhood with just 6 point off, that it's resulted in actually been a serious issue. So how is this different than that?
Good evening. This is Carly Campuzano again, traffic manager. I think I understood your question, Councilmember Coombs. It was a tiny bit choppy, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think you're referencing another intersection within your ward where there's only one entrance in and out to a residential development, and there's no traffic signal. And right now, since traffic is built in that area along Quincy, people are having a tough time turning in and out. So for this development with this number of units, the traffic study determined how many trips will be generated in each peak hour, and in the PM peak hour, it turned out to be about 80 trips total. So that's really only 1 or 2 vehicles every minute in the peak hour. And just looking at Aurora Parkway, it is a little tough to turn now. We expect that to be more tough in the future, obviously. And it might become more difficult to make that left out, in which case people are going to have to make a right instead. And it is really the only access, so that they'll have to turn right. We do think, based on the traffic study, there will be more demand to turn right to get to that part of the city, and also E470. But you're correct, there will not be a signalized access to get out. The developer did run a signal warrant analysis, which are based on volumes, and it's the intersection of of Addison and Aurora Parkway is really not anywhere close to meeting warrants for a traffic signal. I think it was less than half of the required volume, so it really is not expected to be a heavy volume that's heavy enough to warrant stopping a roadway like Aurora Parkway. Did that answer your question?
Somewhat. I guess I wonder why we continue to allow these single access points, knowing that they're creating issues in terms of safety.
Yeah, and I definitely understand what you're saying. I think it's tough because the lands are zoned for specific uses. And so we do require that these studies be conducted and that appropriate public improvements are put in place to the best of our ability. But, also if we just looked at how difficult it is to turn left across an arterial, that would really be justification to signalize every access onto, most arterials, which would be a lot of signals. So we do try to balance the continuity of major arterials with the side street demand. And just with how this site is laid out, there really isn't another point of access, and I don't have the history on the other developments in this area and how they were laid out and why there's not another connection. But with how it's laid out currently, that doesn't seem feasible to include.
Okay. So just one follow-up. You said you don't have the history of the site. Does anyone on staff have the history of the site and how we ended up with an awkward and difficult development with good access parcel being zoned nonetheless for residential development?
So I don't have the data from the sites adjacent in front of me, but I'm sure they did provide traffic studies and determine what their public improvements needed to be. I don't think, we don't require there to be a signalized access for each development. So when areas are developed, we really look at the total trips that'll be generated in that area to determine what sort of access points and are warranted and are needed. So I think just based on the overall demand, which even the existing volumes on Addison are really low in this area. So that's probably why a signal wasn't planned at these access points. I don't think there's anyone here who has specific data on the master plans in front of them.
Okay, my question wasn't really so much about signal access specifically. I guess my question is more so, was this something that was previously supposed to be part of another development that got kind of sold off because it was determined to not be, say, as profitable for that development, and now we have awkward, difficult parcels that are nonetheless used by right, and we end up developing that part of
Yes, Councilperson. So I just wanted to note that there are two master plans that sort of converge on the site. The Talons Reach is along the north and then Eagle Bend to the south. The site was originally part of Eagle Bend until it was amended. But both master plans, the larger master plans for both of these development areas, never planned for a crossing with the creek there. And so the creek, Piney Creek, runs under E470 and across the north end of the site and then all along the east side of the site. So when those master plans which were originally planned, there was never any crossing intended across the creek. And so with E470, limited access to E470, there is only access to the south side of the site. That's all there ever was with the master plan, and then certainly that's all there is now.
Okay, so I guess the question becomes, what is supposed to be a part of Eagle Bend that would have had better access had that plan been fully developed and not amended?
No, because again, the way that it's bordered around the site, there is no feasible way to get the access to that site. So when it was master planned as a development parcel, that's essentially when the access was limited.
Okay, I guess then I just have more and more questions about why we would enable and allow that, so that now we have just honestly a non-ideal parcel for developing. But I'm sure it's not necessarily a good answer to that. Perhaps it's something we can look at moving forward. It seems like the first parcel of this type that we've been having recently.
Further questions of of staff, the applicant, or the appellant?
Mayor.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, and good to see you, Carly. I think you already know what I'm going to ask you. I'm looking at a map of South Aurora and South Addison Court there, and I'm wondering, what does our right-of-way look like around that area? Because I'm hearing a traffic concern about, folks trying to get onto Aurora Parkway from South Addison, and I'm just wondering, there are better ways to manage traffic volumes like that, such as roundabouts. So do we have adequate space for a conversion there?
At the intersection of Addison and Aurora
yeah,
Parkway?
Sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, yeah.
I'm not sure if we would have enough right-of-way for that. I think roundabouts are really hard to fit in with a 6-lane arterial, just with the different
Is that a 6-lane?
lane movements. Isn't it 6? Was it 4?
It's 4.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I was looking at something else.
It's 4 with a painted bike lane.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it could fit in, but I think it would be pretty tough to do. And I think this development is further north, so this intersection isn't actually on their development. So we had them study the existing configuration to see if it could work or if it needed to be something else. And so the study determined the existing configuration will work through the long term, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm just trying to brainstorm because I know that some of the community had concerns about access there as well. Thank you.
Further questions of staff, the applicant, or the appellant?
Mayor.
Councilmember Lawson.
Hi, Carly. I have a question. So I guess one of the things I want to ask you is, you talked about the traffic study and what's here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And Mayor Pro Tem brought up, when we do these developments, I don't think we think about the future because we're going to have 186 units. I don't know how many parking spaces, but that's, you're saying that right now it's at a minimum traffic, but do you look forward in terms of of the development and what's going to happen? Because at the end of the day, they contact council members about traffic lights, about speeding, about all of this stuff. And what I'm hearing you say right now is, oh, it's just minimum. But there's a lot of development around there. The Aurora Parkway is there. There's just a lot of development, period. Even people that don't even live in the neighborhood may go over into the neighborhood. So I guess my question is, you're saying your traffic study is now. It's peak now, it's this. But what about 5 years, 2 years? I just think the city doesn't do a very good job, and I'm not saying anything that, in terms of determining how traffic patterns are happening. That's what happened with the East Bank project. We're not look at all the stuff that's going on over there. Now we have this development. So can you just answer my question on that? You're saying right now we did these traffic studies, but right now we don't see any peak type of. But I can't even imagine just that area and the congestion and the multiple homes and development that is occurring, that you can just say that that's going to even be from 10 years or 5 years. I mean, so can you kind of elaborate on that for me?
Yeah,
please?
I'll go into more detail about the traffic study and what our requirements are at the city and what is studied, because I don't think I explained it all that well. So whenever a traffic study is done, it's done as part of the development application, and one of the beginning submittals, it's what they submit to determine what their public improvements should be. And so as part of that, we have the applicant collect traffic data. So they collect new traffic counts, and we also can compare that to the traffic counts we have to make sure that it's reasonable for the area and there wasn't some sort of anomaly that happened. So we do that, and then the applicant prepares a trip generation, is what we call it. So they use federally accepted data that's used all over the nation that estimates the amount of extra demand that their development will create and will bring to the network. And then they distribute it to the adjacent roadways. And so what they do is they study the existing year time period, which in this case was 2021. They study their opening day year of the development, which can vary, but it's generally 2 to 5 years out. And then they do study the long term as well. So long term in this case, it's normally about 20 years into the future. So they did study 2040. And the way they develop the 2040 counts is they use some of the bigger kind of citywide and area-wide models that are done for the whole region. region. So the Denver Regional Council of Governments, or DRCOG, develops a regional model that they update every 5 years, and they have growth rates for each region that they develop using household and employment data and also using the different city data and city studies that we have, so knowing what sorts of land uses and developments are planned in the city. They have a whole regional model that they develop the future forecast 20 years into the future. And then we have different studies at the city as well. So in the Northeast Aurora area, we have NEATS, for example, we have SEATS and other areas. So from all of these, we have growth rates that we use to project all of the data 20 years into the future. So the data is projected, and then the analysis is run for opening day and for future. So what I'm saying is that for the future year, which is 2040, the intersection delay for that southbound movement out of the development will build. It will get more delayed. It will be harder to turn onto Aurora Parkway. But the intersection overall still operates at an acceptable level for city standards. So it is not close even in the future to meeting any sort of signal criteria. The applicant did offer to pay into a signal escrow account, which we would use if a signal was supposed to be or estimated to be warranted long-term. But that money, if it wasn't used in a 15-year period, would just go back to the development. And we really didn't want to give the community a false expectation that a signal might be built here when we really don't think it'll ever meet criteria. So they do study the long-term as best as they can, as we can. None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know when there will be recessions, what will happen with development adjacent. Whenever there is a change to a master plan study, if it's a significant change, then we have to redo the traffic studies and redo some of the master plan documents. So we try to keep up as best we can. No study is ever going to be 100% accurate, but I just think we do our best with all the data and the bigger picture that we do have available.
Further questions of staff, the applicant, or the appellant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard?
No, Mayor.
Are there any questions, or are there any further questions of members of council? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. A motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve item 13B.
So moved by Councilmember Zavonic, seconded by Sundberg. I'm sorry, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 13B. Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Zavonic.
So I appreciate both the applicant and the appellant. You know, these are the tough questions that come before local government. We've talked about this a number of times, but I believe that we have a responsibility as city leaders to create an environment that creates certainty for businesses that want to operate in our city. And our ordinances, our UDO, those are our rules. We set those rules. And when businesses come to our city and they play by our rules that we set, despite some of the pushback that we get, we owe it to them to say, these were the rules we set, you played by them, and your project is approved. So I hope that we get an affirmative vote on this, because I believe that the applicant has done everything that they needed to do to meet our rules in order to do business in our city.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. And I want to thank everybody who testified. I also want to thank the applicants as well for their presentation. I think I want to touch on something that Councilmember Coombs said earlier, and that is that I think we need to revise how, the rules that let us get into the situation where we have strangely shaped parcels that, lack ideal potentials for egress to and from a site. That said, as we saw from this presentation and heard from staff, this checks all the boxes that we have set in our code as it currently stands. I appreciate the community benefit as well, connecting it to Red Tail Hawk Park. So I personally don't see a reason why this council should not uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's vote and move this forward.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Gardner.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of want to echo what my colleagues have said already. We continue to say that we need housing in our city, and yet anytime there's a housing development with the least bit of controversy, folks, don't don't want it. They want it somewhere else. And, I think there was legitimate concerns, but I also think the applicant addressed many of those concerns. I appreciate the neighborhood that appealed this, that going through the process, I think they made the project better. I think the developer has made some improvements that's going to make this an even better part of the housing stock in our community. But at the end of the day, the oath that we take, part of that oath is that we are going to uphold the ordinances of the city of Aurora, and there is not a legitimate reason in our ordinances to vote against what is being asked of us tonight based upon the legal analysis done by staff. And so because of that, I urge my colleagues to support the applicant and vote yes.
Further discussion, item number 13B.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, and I appreciate the fact that this is a use by right. I'm pretty much a property rights person. I do have difficulty with this particular development, and it was partly, I think, some issues from staff that didn't do proper notification, that didn't allow communication to happen on the earlier end, so that possibly more people would have been able to voice their opinion, and you would have been able to actually hear them and see if there were any changes that would be acceptable. So I appreciate that. I know we need housing. Personally, I have a lot of concern about the traffic, and it's not necessarily, again, on the developer. It's that area, Aurora Parkway, people are going 50, 55 miles an hour on that road all the time. I put in council requests constantly on this speeding on that road. We had, I think we had a fatality last year or the year before, I can't remember. So I am concerned about the one entrance on Addison. I'm also, I understand we have the fire access. I'm not sure if I am 100% there on being able to respond in an emergency if there's several emergencies happening at the same time in the area with that road. I think we do need to work on our notification system. It's broken. And for us to say that people have to register, to get notification, different HOAs and so forth, should not be the case. I mean, they don't even know they're supposed to register, and then this happens. And so, as much as I know that housing is needed, I honestly do not feel it's compatible with with what's next to it. If you look at Heritage Eagle Bend, that is right there, those homes, and the Highland Villas, their architecture is very different. And I know you met the UDO, but I personally don't think it fits the neighborhood. And I will say, turning left from any of those neighborhoods, whether you're at Aurora or Highland Villas or you're in Heritage Eagle Bend, it's almost impossible to make a left-hand turn, and it's just going to get worse. And I know a signal's not going to be warranted for many, many, many years, probably, maybe never. I am the one that gets the complaints as the city council member on all the traffic issues. And I know there's going to be more complaints. With 186 units and 465, I think was the estimate given by the city living there, you can just multiply the number of vehicles that we're going to, are going to be impacted and coming in and out of that area. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the development. It looks like you will probably have support, but personally, I cannot.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 13B. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, we don't have your vote.
I'm a no.
Okay, the motion passes with 9 yes votes, 2 no votes from Councilmember Lawson and Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Item number 15A, 15B, 15C, 15D were ordinances that passed unanimously in the first reading, so I can take them together. Motion is in order for the adoption of 15A, 15B, 15C, and 15D. Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 15A through 15D.
Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Murillo, second.
Second by Councilmember Murillo to approve item number 15A, 15B, 15C, and 15D. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of item number 15A, 15B, 15C, and 15D.
The motion passes to approve items 15A through 15D.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19A.
Item 19A is agreement with Mile High Behavioral Healthcare for purchase of facility at 10190 East Mount View Boulevard.
A brief presentation by staff.
Mayor and members of council, this proposal is a result of prioritizing our ARPA funds for different types of projects. This project fell under our behavioral health category of ARPA funding. Mayor Pro Tem brought this forward. The funding agreement originally came to you for a larger amount. Adams County was able to also support this project, and so the applicant has asked that we reduce the amount of funding down to $300,000 to support the purchase of this building.
Questions of staff?
You want questions first, not motion?
The questions of staff first.
Oh, none.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 19A.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by?
Marcano?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Marcano?
I think I heard Coombs first.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Marcano. Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. I guess I have more of a comment, and that is that I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm happy, first, that there was some additional funds that came in to help support this, but I am disappointed that when asked directly at the study session back in April if there was additional partners that could potentially be leveraged in order to fund this building, the answer was no. Again, happy that it turned out that that wasn't the case, but I am disappointed that that was not truthfully relayed to us back in April. And it's for that reason I have some reservations about whether or not I could support the city supporting this for that reason alone.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I hope my colleagues will support this. Originally, the amount was $2 million that we did approve as a council. The applicant did apply for a grant with Adams County and was awarded the $1.7 million, which obviously reduces our amount to $300,000. This is for a really good cause for Colfax Community Network. In your backup, you have the appraisal. The appraisal came in at $2.34 million, and you also have attachment A that shows all the services that go for the kids. This new building is going to afford the ability to not only serve the kids that have been served that are up to, I think, 5th or 6th grade, but we will now be able to serve the middle school aged kids as well. That is the intent of the program. And I also want to say that the neighborhood association in that area is excited about it and is supportive and actually is going to volunteer at Colfax Community Network. So just in closing, I think it's good news. We're only spending $300,000 and we have remaining funds, or ARPA funds. So please ask you to please support it. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes, I'll be brief since I think you all can't quite hear me very well. Just good or supporting this program that has done so much for our community up until this point. Colfax Community Network has really been a pillar of serving young people and families in our community, and I hope that we will expansion with a very modest contribution.
Myself, I rise in opposition because the city should not be purchasing real property for a nonprofit that works for the city on an annual contract, operates a program for the city on an annual contract. Further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question on item number 19A.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes no.
The motion passes with 8 yes votes, 3 no votes from Mayor Kaufman, Councilmember Zvonek, and Councilmember Drinsky.
Reports, mayor's no report. Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, both Senators Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett have moved the Mlk Library Project forward on their list of projects for the congressionally directed spending. That means all 3 members of our delegation have moved forward the library project, and Congressman Crow has moved forward the Aurora Waterline Replacement Project. The House plans to mark up their bill later this month, and the Senate will mark up theirs later in the summer. So we'll know if our projects make it to the next step, but we're very well positioned. Congressman Crow, along with Mayor Kaufman and myself, and other leaders from the providers from the for Restoration Fellowship, Church, Salvation Army, Pallet Shelter, and Clean the World's Fresh Start Wash and Wellness Program, visited the site and a tour was provided for the pallet shelter and the shower trailers. So as many of you recall, Congressman Crow successfully supported the city's earmark request last year for $1 million to go forward for ongoing operations of the site. I also want to bring up something that will be happening on June 11th, the TT coaching with results, coaches on resume writing, career building, and life skills for youth and young adults it's called the Nonviolence and Social Media Life Skills. Omar Montgomery, the NAAC president of the Aurora branch, will be a guest speaker on social media. This is going to be at the Aurora Central Library, Public Library, from 1 to 3 on Saturday, June 11th. And it should be a pretty good thing for our young adults and also our adults as well in those areas. I don't have AdCog. My AdCog meeting, sub-regional meeting, will be on Thursday, and I'll have an update on that at the next meeting. And our RTD Reimagine meeting will be on June 30th, so I'll provide an update when that happens as well, Mayor. So thank you.
Councilmember Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is an update or announcement, I guess, for the public safety meeting on June 16th. Over the last several years, there's been a systematic effort at our state legislature to decriminalize and reduce the penalties for a variety of offenses, ultimately leading to an environment that has enabled criminals. One of the areas that we've seen a reduction in penalties and a corresponding increase is in motor vehicle theft. From 2019 to 2021, the state of Colorado saw an 89% increase in motor vehicle theft, or 86%, excuse me. And as outrageous as that number sounds, during the same period of time, right here in Aurora, we have seen an increase of 239% in motor vehicle theft. And unfortunately, the trajectory is not getting any better. In the first 5 months of this year, we're 25% over year-to-date last year, which was our peak year. Later this month, at the public safety meeting on June 16th, a comprehensive plan that aims to tackle this problem, to crack down on car theft and make Aurora the most punitive city in the state of Colorado to steal a car, will be introduced. The plan will, as I mentioned, be presented on June 16th at 8:30 a.m. It will intentionally define a strategic plan that will include a minimum mandatory sentence be added to our municipal code for motor vehicle theft and for those who attempt to game our system by failing to appear to court. The plan will also look at increased penalties for theft of essential car parts such as, not limited to, but such as catalytic converters. Our residents demand action. This is a plan that will give them the action that they're demanding when it comes to addressing motor vehicle theft. And so I hope that for those of you who are interested in this topic, that you'll tune in June 16th at 8:30 a.m. You can find information on how to attend virtually on the city's website, or email me directly and I'll get you your link. Thank you.
Councilmember Jurenski.
Thank you. I just want to announce that the Public Safety Committee is hosting a first responders celebration on the Great Lawn here at the AMC. It's on Saturday, July 16th from noon to 4. We have food trucks, ice cream trucks, we have live music. It's a day of family fun. Police and fire will have vehicles out there available for kids or whoever wants to see them, and it will be a day to honor our first responders in this city.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Just wanted to announce my monthly town hall, which is the 23rd of this month, June. It's a Thursday at 6 p.m. And then second, I just wanted to give a shout out to Girls Inc. Councilmember Coombs and I will be mentoring a cohort of interns from that program from schools throughout the Denver metro area, actually with most of them from Aurora, Smoky Hill as a popular high school that our interns are coming from, and they're going to learn more about local government, city business, and all that wonderful stuff. So just wanted to let folks know and give them a shout out for they actually pay their interns to intern for the summer. So that's a really awesome benefit they provide their students who participate. So day one, and hopefully we'll have a great month moving forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Just continuing to visit industry and business and commerce in Ward 2, a lot of exciting things happening. I was out at Acre, the Aurora campus for renewable energy, visiting SolarTAC, seeing the thermal and photovoltaic solar experiments out there, as well as, there's going to be upcoming hydrogen energy experiments. I'm not sure Aurora residents know about that 1,300 acres of R&D. Martin Marietta was a concrete and asphalt manufacturing facility that's helping Aurora to grow, meeting that need. Councilmember Jurenski and I visited General Dynamics in their IT division recently with about 100 employees. They're excited to get more plugged into Aurora. The Gaylord you and I visited, sir, recently. There is a $1.5 billion expansion around the 130 acres, which is very exciting. Potential concert venue, more convention space, 1,000 more rooms, etc., water conservation. Let's see, just supporting commerce and business around the city. Today was a U.S. Bank ribbon cutting, Ed Bozarth. Looking forward to shopping and various retail opportunities coming to Ward 2, which the residents really need, and I'll have more details on that later.
Councilmember Marcano. I'm sorry, Councilmember Medina.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just had my town hall last Wednesday, June 1st, at the Active Adult Center. Code enforcement was kind of there to talk about all the different questions that community had for that. It was a pretty good turnout and good feedback from the community on a couple things that will be taken back to some of the committees around recycling and some of the codes changes. Thank you.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next Ward 4 meeting is going to be this Thursday, June 9th, at Colorado Early Colleges at 6:30 p.m. Our topic is going to be the criteria for criminal investigations. So to facilitate that, we're going to be joined by Officer Lonnie Crump, Detective Nick Huber, both with APD, and Senior Prosecutor Vicki Klingensmith with District Attorney Kellner's office. So this should be a really in-depth and enlightening conversation, and I really hope that y'all can make it out to that. I also wanted to shout out the African Service Center, who is hosting a job fair in Ward 4 at 10730 East Bethany Drive, 80014, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Friday, June 24th. So if you or someone you know is looking for work, please spread the word. Hope you all have a great night.
Councilmember Coombs.
We will not have a town hall meeting for Ward 5 in June. And other than that, I have no report.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say that I attended the 46th Annual Armed Forces Recognition Luncheon on the 18th. And again, congratulations to the servicemen and women that were given awards that day. Saturday, we had our council workshop, and we had 3 topics on the agenda. Basically a budget update, and then we had an update on capital projects, and then the final topic was on long-term homeless solutions. And then we ended the day with actually kind of fun activities where we were able to participate in fire and police exercises. And I will have to say that Councilmember Lawson and I are the bravest ones on council. We volunteered for almost every single exercise, from doing the fire hose to, I was hobbled, she went in the new restraint, and then we also did the simulation. I did the simulation, but it was great fun. I want to just thank the police and the fire for putting that on, and Jason Batchelor and Jim Tromley, our city manager. It was a great event. Everybody that was there, I think, participated, and it was a good time for all. So thank you. And I want to say today is D-Day. So I just want to recognize that this is the day that we honor and recognize those that fought so heroically to, basically free the world from the Nazi terror that was happening in World War II. And we should never forget their sacrifices. So, and lastly, those of you who voted no on the Colfax Community Network, I would assume you're not going to the ribbon cutting.
You're correct. Seeing no further business before the Aurora City Council regular meeting for June 6, 2022, this meeting is adjourned.